talk about login configuration for DAST scans. Okay, here I'm using AppScan Standard for the demo to explain the login configuration. Let's create a new scan and let me choose demo.test4.net template. So if I choose that, the URL is auto populated, and now let me go to login management screen. Here I'm going to record the login sequence using the embedded browser, that is AppScan Chromium browser. This will open a embedded browser. Click on sign in, enter the credentials. Good, I logged in. After I logged in, I can see main.jsp. Maybe I will click few more links. Okay, and then I'll go to locations and maybe carriers. Good. Now I click on the button in the bottom right corner that it says I am logged into the site. So now AppScan tries to process the response of all the requests into the application during the login. So it has to identify all the sessions that are there in the application, and it also has to check whether the configuration is good enough to go ahead with the scan. Good, it looks good. Login successfully configured, and if you see this, it has played back the action-based login sequence. I'll explain you what is action-based login sequence, and then it has identified all these session IDs. Then it has also identified the session pattern. We'll talk about that. Then it has also sent the request the session detection URL and identified that session is can be rebuilt with, or session can be identified easily with this request. Let's take a look at closely all these parameters or all these configuration. Let's go to the review and validate tab. So here you can see two different types of login playback method. One is action based, request based. So action based, if you click on this edit button here, you can see all the actions performed by the user on the application. When you open the page, when you open the application in a browser, he clicks on some buttons, he clicks on some of the text boxes, he provides some values to the text boxes. All these actions are captured in the AppScan, and here we see all those actions. So you can edit some of the actions, you can delete, and you can provide some delay between the actions. So all these modifications can be done here, but I'll not do that for this application. In the next video, I'll take some sample example where the default configuration fails, and we have to make some changes over here to make the configuration work or the session detection work. Okay, now let's keep it as it is and we will continue. Good. Now if you wanted to replay the login sequence, on clicking this replay, we can replay the whole login sequence. Again, it opens the embedded browser, plays back all the sequences. Good. I think it has covered all the clicks. Good. Sequence is good, and it has played back the sequence successfully. Let's close this. Okay, so now we'll take a look at the other playback method, that is request based. Now we just saw the action based. The request based one is just sending the request to all the saved URLs, all the URL that are captured during the login sequence or during the recording, right? So it sends a request to all these URLs and analyzes the response coming from the application and identifies the identify session variables and checks whether the session can be established or not. Okay, that's about the playback methods, and we have to see the two important configuration. That is, one is in-session detection request, other one is in-session detection pattern. So let's see. Okay, so we know that actually AppScan uses this playback sequences when it goes out of session. During the scanning, if it finds out of session, then it has to play back these sequences to rebuild the session so that all the session variables will be refreshed with new values. But question is, how AppScan identifies out of session during the scanning? So what it does is, it's as simple as me going to the browser and refreshing the page and see if the page comes up. If it is still in session, the page loads properly. Otherwise, I'll be redirected to login page. So I can see that the page is loaded properly. On refreshing, it means it's in session. That's what it does. It sends out a request to this one of the URL. This URL is one captured after the login. So maybe it can be a home page, it can be a dashboard page, or it can be user profile page. Any pages that you see or any URL that you get after logging into the application. So apps can send out a request to this URL periodically, maybe for every few seconds, and analyze the response. And in the response, if it finds out a string that is sign off, then it concludes that it is in session. If it doesn't find the string sign off, it means it is out of session. Right? Same as on refreshing the page, if I see the sign in link, okay, here I have not signed in. Let me sign in here. Let me sign in first. Good, I signed in. Now if I refresh the page and if I see sign off link, it means I'm still signed in. By any chance, if I am logged out, I will not see the sign off link. Instead, I will see sign in link. See, it means if I don't see sign off link or sign off string in the page or in the response, it means I am out of session. That's what AppScan is also doing. So it's very important to choose the right pattern and also important to choose the right request. It can be any URL. The session detection request can be any URL that you see after logging to the application. So then in the case of session detection pattern, apps can identify this pattern as a string by default automatically. But if you see that this string is not the right one, then you can go ahead and make the changes or you can identify the new pattern here, a new string here. Okay, this is about the session detection. So once you configure or once you make all these changes, if you want to check whether the configuration is correct or not, you can have to click on validate, and it will validate all your changes. And first it tests our playback action based login sequence, and then it playback request based, and if one of them goes fine, it should be good enough, because during the scanning, apps can try out both. If it succeeds through one of the method, then it will continue with the scanning. Just make sure that at least one of them goes fine. So eventually, if you see login successfully configured, it means you are ready to go ahead with to scan the application. Okay, that's about the session detection. Maybe in the next video, we'll talk about session IDs. Thank you.